Evelyn Deekhouse, William Kinney, Haley Scruggs, Mike Hill, Cynthia Peak, and Catherine Kuntz. Their lives were tragically cut short because of gun violence at the Covenant School in Nashville only a few weeks ago. Now we reel from another mass shooting in Louisville, where even a police officer younger than me is fighting for their life. Gun violence is impacting and hurting every part of our community and all people within our communities, and the solutions that we have offered are not good enough. They are not the ones that can keep us safe and protect us. Unfortunately, the solution offered by the Republican Party in the state of Tennessee was to try and expel us, try and expel our voices, and silence our fight for an end to gun violence. They worked to expel our constituents' representation by subverting our democracy for their mobocracy, where their dollars and their egos rule. But our democracy is powered by people, and people power always wins. They tried to expel this movement for justice, but it cannot be stopped, because I see folks at ages 9 and 12 and 22 and even 92, people who are refusing to be bowed down, bent, or broken, standing up for what is right, getting proximate to those who are suffering, because it is there with those folks who are suffering that the wells of democracy run deepest. As my mother says, what the devil meant for bad, God meant for good. God meant for good. God needed to reignite this movement to end gun violence. God needed to catalyze the conversation about anti-democratic behavior of the Republican Party in the state of Tennessee. God needed to wake us up to the reality of this moment, that we've got a new generation and new ideas and new beliefs in order to guide us into the future. And so what Cameron Sexton meant for bad, God has turned into good. We realize that there are already more mass shootings than days in this country. We realize that the challenges of gun violence and its pervasiveness we see every day. In communities like ours in Memphis and Shelby County, we see this too often, because there's a proliferation of bad and poor policies coming out of this state legislature. They don't realize that these bullets are doing more than hurting just people. They're shattering communities. At the grocery store, on your walks, at the bank. It is the proliferation of guns, the legislation that removed the need to have permits, that have been a disaster for our communities. Our law enforcement, which many people praise, are being forced to go to war when they just are going to work. Kids are told to go to fortresses instead of to go to school and places of learning. We're told to go to church carrying the status quo's thoughts and prayers, while we must be in fear that somebody will walk in with an assault weapon. Because they're in the hands of ordinary citizens, we've got better solutions to these very challenging and troubling problems. And it's about time that we implement those solutions in the state of Tennessee. And we right now are showing Tennessee and the country that there's only one way forward. That the principalities and the wickedness in high places is not the way. That there will be a new building of this building, with a foundation built on love, with pillars of justice rising up, with rafters of courage covering us, with doors that are open to everybody in the state of Tennessee, not just rich somebodies, but everybody, not just straight somebodies, but everybody's, not just Republican somebodies, but everybody. We are showing this state and the country the only way forward. And I got to tell you that good news, we're going to win. I got to tell you, we're going to win. This has been a difficult legislative session if you watched anything. You've seen bills passed against drag shows. You've seen transgender children lose health care. You've seen talk about retaining third graders from school, disproportionately hurting black and brown children. You've seen some terrible things that have happened, and you might wonder, how is it that we can still in this moment, after we've just been expelled, but we're back? How we can still have courage and hope and faith in this democracy in Tennessee. Well, I believe William Cullen Bryant is right, that truth crushed to earth will rise again. I believe James Russell Lowell is right, because truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. Yes, our democracy is not their mobocracy. Mob rule will never defeat people rule. We will never defeat the people's voice. We will never defeat people's First Amendment right to speak for what they know in their heart, their body, and their soul to be right. We will win because we will never quit. And if we never quit, even in a place like Tennessee, we'll see days of justice spring forth. If we never quit, we'll see the governor signing executive orders to expand universal background checks. If we never quit, we'll see a governor named Pilot demanding just legislation for red flag laws. If we never quit, I assure you we will win, because we'll always center the voices of the marginalized. We'll always center the voices of the poor. We'll always center queer folks. We'll always center marginalized folks. We'll always center excluded folks. We'll always move people who've been pushed to the periphery to the center of the conversation to lead the march toward justice. And I know that when young people and older people, when rich people and poor people build Heather McGhee's solidarity dividend, justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Well, Representative Pearson, how do you know? Because it was just 1 week ago that we sat in the State House on the well of democracy and were persecuted. We're called out of our names. We're talked down to and talked about. We're told we didn't understand democracy. We didn't understand our responsibility. Told we didn't belong here. But today, just a week later, there's resurrection that's been promised to a persecuted people. There's a resurrection that's been promised to a persecuted people. And so for each and every one of us, we've got good news. That resurrection is promised to persecuted people. We've got news of a resurrection of hope, of a resurrection of justice, of a resurrection of faith, even in Tennessee. And I'm so glad to be fighting with you, to be marching with you, because victory is ours.